So we'll get going, because the sooner we start, the sooner we can get questions, the sooner we can go to lunch. I've got the sandwiches. Thanks for coming, and I know that this actually, there were some jokes on the Google group about this half hour, because two of the people that I wanted to have come to this were Lisa and Bagwayach, because both of them in different forms had sort of dissed the idea of Second Life in different ways. And part of the reason I did this is because I wanted them to say, no, it's cool, it's good for stuff. So I want to welcome first of all Bryan Person, who's up from Boston, who's one of the original PodCamp organizers, and we were chatting on news groups and emails and things like that, putting this together, throwing stuff back and forth, and we were literally like scratching notes together up to the last second. So this is what PodCamp is really all about. So how many people here, just by show of hands, have logged into Second Life, have an avatar? How many would call yourselves regular Second Life users? Like more than once a week, more than a couple times a month? Yeah, just a couple people. So most of you are fairly new to Second Life. So I will do a little bit of the sort of introductory stuff. So, yeah, to the, hit it. The Second Life, as you probably know, is a virtual world. It's from a company out of San Francisco called Linden Lab. And there are other sort of virtual world type applications. It just happens to be kind of the most popular and the one, as you probably know, with sort of the most hype surrounding it. Now, I think Bryan would agree with this, we're not necessarily saying Second Life itself is kind of the be-all and end-all of this. And in fact, you know, it's sort of a generally acknowledged thing that it may or may not be Second Life, that we're doing these kinds of things in a year or 2 or 5 years from now. But I think the important thing to think about is the idea of virtual worlds and how you can use them for some of the kinds of events we're going to talk about. So Second Life in particular, and we'll talk about that specific technology because that's what we're using, is free to join. You got to download a big piece of software, as some of you know, and sometimes you have to download it a couple times a week when they do upgrades, which is a bit of a pain. You need high speed and you need a fairly beefy computer. So this is not something that's for everybody just from a technological standpoint. Also, for those of you who have logged in, you'll know that the initial process of creating your avatar and doing all that stuff is kind of onerous. You better a lot about half an hour to 45 minutes at least the first time you get into Second Life. It's not a 5-minute install and setup to get in. Okay, so that's just for those of you who haven't done it. It's a little daunting at first, but once you get into it, hopefully you'll start to see some of this potential. Second Life is not a video game. It looks like a video game, and actually all the stuff that I put up here is kind of fun, kooky activities. But really, it's a world, and you can do the things that you would do in a real world. You can hang out in a hot tub and have a drink with a friend and go to a dance. You can buy things, you can sell things, you can create things. There's money that's actually real money. Their currency is called lindens, and there's actually an exchange where you can exchange lindens for real money, American money. And the exchange, like any exchange, goes up and down every day. And buying and selling are at different prices. So it's a real economy and has real money. Okay? But it's not a game, there's no winners, there's no losers, there's no points. What Second Life is really all about, at least, yeah. Is there a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
For those of us who, I had never heard of Second Life. I was curious.
Okay.
Who made it? Where did it come from?
Linden Labs is the company. Yeah, Linden Labs is the company, and this idea of sort of virtual worlds is not new. Some of you who've been around this stuff for a while will know about things like VRML and QuickTime VR. This idea of sort of 3D worlds is not new, and there are other applications that are like this. This one just happens to have a lot of juice behind it because it has a lot of users. What are we pushing, 3 million?
About 4 million.
4 million, pushing 4 million users at this point, which is substantial for something that, as we said, requires a fair degree of time investment and a fair degree of technology behind it. It's a privately owned company that has this, but they're actually starting to release some stuff into open source, which is an interesting thing. And it's kind of a sideline to this discussion, but I think that's gonna help them out in the end in terms of their moving that particular technology forward. So it may or may not be called Second Life in a few years, the way that we don't call Netscape anymore, but what was Mozilla and now Firefox and things like that came out of that. I strongly, that's my feeling, is that this is going to turn into something like that. Anyway, yeah, Second Life it's not a game, it's a world. Okay, so you want to get another. Yeah, this is the real big point here, and sort of preface everything we say by this because this was one of the discussions that went around on some of the lists and some of the things that Bob and Lisa and other people had said that I wanted to kind of refute. Second Life is not a replacement for real life meetings. It's an alternative. It's a different way to gather. It's a way to get people in a room, a virtual room in this case, who wouldn't be able to all travel together. It's fantastic that we're all here in Toronto. And let's face it, this is the way to do it if you can do it. If people can, get the time off work and travel and afford a hotel room. We can't do that every weekend. We can't, I can't hang out with Brian as much as I would like to every week because he's in Boston and I'm in Toronto and other people are in Vancouver or San Francisco or London or wherever they might be. So this is not a replacement for real-life meetings, it's an alternative. And it's a different way of thinking about meeting and meetups and gathering. Okay, so I want to make that really clear. I'm not by any means saying we shouldn't meet face-to-face. Absolutely not. This is just another way to reinforce community and to build community. You want to talk about the sort of hype factor?
Sure. So, we mentioned excuse me, I'm a bit of a cold. We mentioned a minute ago or so that there's pushing 4 million users, 4 million registered users. All that means is there have been 4 million people that have actually opened an account, or 4 million accounts that have actually been opened. That doesn't mean that there are actually 4 million people that are actively using it, right? So the figure that seems to be going around is around 1/10 of the total people that have registered are active participants within the last 30 to 60 days. So that means, what, 400,000. So there's this question when you're hearing about Second Life. For those of you that haven't used Second Life, where have you heard about it? Anyone?
Oh, never.
That haven't you?
Mitch Joe.
Okay. CBC. Yeah. What's that? FIR. They talk about it a lot.
I first heard about it through podcasting. I first heard about it through CC Chapman and through Nora Young.
But if you see the story, the online stories or the press releases, it's 3 million. 3 million people are in Second Life. Well, or 4 million, not really, right? So, but it's great marketing, right? That number that keeps being thrown around, and it is a sign that people are going there and trying it out, and a percentage is sticking. Just to get an idea of how fast it's growing, at the end of 2005, there were 100,000 total people that had registered, and that's from when did Second Life start? Around 2003. 2003.
The out of beta,
right?
Interrelease.
So the first 2 or 3 years, there were maybe 100,000 people that had ever tried it out. That number hit 1 million in October, so around middle of October. It quickly hit 2 million by the end of December. It hit 3 million in January. It's going to hit. If someone wants to go to secondlife.com now, there should be a number there that says total registrants. It's going to be around 4 million before this month is over. So that's a sign that it's gaining momentum and that more and more people are talking about it, using it, trying it out. What's the
3,972,000.
Okay, so by the end of the weekend we might be at 4 million, right? So the number, I went to a presentation by Linden Lab back in December, and what they said was that once people get over that initial hurdle, which is getting there and getting on orientation island, figuring out how to customize your avatar, figuring out how to move around, how to chat, how to move from place to place. If you can get past that, because I'm not really while we said it's not a game, there is some of the sort of the usability of it comes from the gaming world, I think, and I'm not a gamer. So for me, kind of picking it up, it took a long time. I mean, I probably spent 4 hours on orientation and get off it, but I stuck with it. And so once people get past that hurdle, the first couple of weeks and figuring out that point, they tend to stay in, right? So it's sort of getting over that point. Now these are 2 examples of real businesses that have set up a Second Life presence. The first one is an American company, American Apparel, and that's, at least down in the US, that name is always thrown around as an example of a company. Look at what they're doing in Second Life. And this is TELUS, which the Canadian crowd should know. But here's the interesting thing about American Apparel. They put up their storefront, which allows you to sell, actually to buy clothes for your avatar, customized t-shirt or hat, or if you're a man, you can be a woman or whatever you want, right? Change your outfit. So they put that up, I want to say last April, May, June, somewhere in there. Yeah, and I don't know that they've done anything since then.
And tell us, I use this example because I thought maybe not everybody in Canada will admit to American Apparel, and maybe for some Americans they won't know TELUS, so I thought we should have both. tell us much the same. And you can go, you guys will recognize some of these things. You can get the little bunny rabbit shirts and those kinds of things. And you can get the phones that don't really do anything, but you can get them. And it's much the same though. You go there, it's always abandoned. Since the launch, they really haven't done anything except say, hey, we're in second wave.
Right.
And I think American Apparel and Telus are very comparable in that way.
They put up their store, and they have got great mileage, great legs out of that. And people still talk about American Apparel and how they're into Second Life. And this is actually frustrating from a user's point of view if you're in there. Because a lot of businesses, they're trying to get the PR hit, they're trying to extend their brand, but they're not really building a presence that engages with the community. So there's sort of that two steps. One, you have to spend, and this can be the numbers I'm hearing around, say $20,000 to get a custom island built for your business, all the way up to $50,000, $100,000, depending on how much detail and how many. Yes.
100,000 lindens or dollars?
U.S. dollars. U.S. dollars. Sorry. To build that because it's sort of how everyone's going in there. Developers or builders, the people that can build to such detail these replicas or specific islands. They get a pretty penny for their work. They charge through the nose. So businesses are paying that, but I don't think a lot have figured out yet. Once they put up their storefront, once they put up their island, what do they do with it?
And Brian, I wanted to cut in because I threw this slide in.
Yeah.
Because there's a virtual Yankee Stadium in Second Life. And I kept saying this, I said there's got to be a joke about a guy from Boston and a guy from Toronto showing an empty virtual Yankee Stadium, but I couldn't, you guys can write your own joke.
My thing was I was avoiding this slide. Not liking the Yankees.
That's right.
So,
but I think because it's empty, I think
Right.
that there's the joke.
But I actually was on a conference call with a guy from Major League Baseball that they put this up last year, I think it was last year, during the All-Star game, during the Home Run Derby. You could actually, with your avatar, sit inside the stadium and see, I think they may have had streaming video or kind of maybe when the ball was hit, they would have something in Second Life that would show where the ball went and have fan noise and all that kind of thing. And it worked fairly well, but that was an experiment. A lot of this is experimentation, and I think this is closed. The one I tried to go in there.
You know what? You can get to it.
Right.
And this is one of those wacky things. They sort of closed it, but it's still there. You
Right.
can't actually teleport directly to it,
Right.
but you can teleport to a nearby island and fly to it.
Okay.
So it's sort of semi-closed.
So they did it. They tried it. They said, "Oh, they got some great legs out of it. We'll keep it there, and we'll figure out what to do next." But that may not be until maybe it's this year's All-Star game. So a lot of challenges here. So yes.
I'm just looking at this parallel universe. I've never seen this sort of thing before with the Sims. It's just some, I guess, the springboard facility. I'm wondering what the addictive potential is for this. Like people basically spending all of their waking hours in this. Yeah.
Well, can anyone?
You have ever quest for the request widows, people who never saw their.
Does anyone want to comment on that?
So change your email,
Yeah.
manage it. Of course it's addictive, but get your BlackBerry, and all of a sudden, I don't sit down on my computer anymore to answer my email. I do it while I'm driving. So, I don't know why I'm driving, but
No, you're right.
manage your addiction.
Right.
And of course it is. If there's any type of drug out there, whether it be zeros and ones or narcotic,
There's
people are getting addicted to it.
I heard somebody say something, World of Warcraft widows. The other day, it's the same sort of thing, right? I think that's very, and yes, of course, there are people who are that, and there always will be. Like anything, and as you say, there's people who can manage it, there's people who can't. I think we advocate the healthy use.
Right. Yes.
I work part-time for Sulaki Canada, which runs Havo, which is a kids' online chat community. And we have to suggest the kids go home, as in get off the computer, go outside, because there are kids who will sit there for hours every day.
Well, we need to tell that to adults too. but kids are particularly susceptible. Yes.
The first thing I read in the real world media about Second Life, not through people who are writing reports or everyone's in the mail, but a stay-at-home mom who was lonely. She had 2 toddlers at home. Her husband worked long hours. She's out in BC, spent $40,000 Canadian shopping, hanging out at bars, doing whatever to give yourself a social life.
But it's, you know what, it enables all the things that you have problems with in real life, right? Except it makes it easier. If you are a shopaholic in real life, you can be a virtual shopaholic. And if you're a gambler in real life, you can be a virtual. There's lots of gambling. There's strip bars. There's all the things, all the sort of, other than actual drugs, which I'm sure they'll figure out a way to do. I think there's all the different, sort of vices that we have as humans are you can feed through this. So there's no question. And again, there's this kind of idea that, well, it's all just sex and people shopping for shoes in here. And you know what? If you look around the city of Toronto and just look at the surface, it's all just sex and shopping for shoes. You don't actually go to the buildings and talk to people. So that's the point, right?
And you can, just like real life, you can make out of this space or this world what you want to. If you want to be, I think the first so-called millionaire, the person who had $1 million in actual U.S. equivalent to $1 million in U.S. assets, was a real estate developer. She was on the front of Business Week last May, and she chunked. $1 million in assets. She buys up land, builds it, develops it, and then sells it to people.
In Second Life?
Now,
In Second Life.
Now, and I want to do this back to the reason that we want to put this together, because I think, and I think Brian will agree with this, for us anyway, for some people it's about building cool stuff, and that's cool. It's neat to see virtual Yankee Stadium, virtual pyramids, whatever. Go to the virtual American Apparel store and get your virtual telephone. Fun, but the real interest, I think, and this is what we're going to talk about next, is the interaction between people. Because when you see another avatar, there's a real person behind it, and it might be someone that you know in real life, and it might not. So let's talk about Crayon.
Yeah.
There.
So we want to give you actually four examples of ways that we've seen Second Life be used effectively for different kind of communication.
How many people have heard of Crayon Company? What can you tell me about Crayon? Bill, what can you tell me about Crayon?
Marketing.
Yeah.
Marketing firm. The big place online, you can see there.
Yeah.
Fairly big place in Second Life. CC's involved.
Yeah, Joseph Jaffe, if you know that name, CC Chapman, a few other who else is in there? Schultz, thank you, Hobson, and some other folks put this company together. It's I don't think they like us calling it an agency.
Right.
It's not exactly an agency. It's sort of a new model. It's a new marketing company is what they call it. So anyway, they do these meetups. So you want to talk about the
Sure. So they are, these guys are located around the world, but their idea, and they built this island, which they unveiled in October. Their idea is to make this a place where community gathers. Right? So people come in here every Thursday morning, 9 o'clock Eastern time. You go in there for 30 minutes or an hour or so. That's 9 Eastern, 6 o'clock Linden time. Linden time is Pacific, West Coast time. So you go in there, and this is what it is. There are 40 or 50 different avatars in there, typically talking about business. So marketing, public relations, and online communities, online conversation. And so that's what this is. I'm looking to see if I'm there. I think I might be.
I'm this guy. I'm the guy who's bald with shirt and jeans.
So
I've gone very fantasy, as you can see.
and as Jay said, this is not meant to be a replacement for real life gatherings, right? But if I'm in my office in Boston, Jay's in his home or his office in Toronto, someone else is in California, someone else is in Australia. Here's a way that we can all just get together for 30 minutes or an hour and chat. And you don't see the bubbles here, but the primary form of interaction is text, chat. There is some audio capability, and I think that's coming through Skype or another plugin that allows you to have the voice interaction as well. But so that's one way. You want to go on to the next. Any questions about that? Actually,
it's basically like a big chat room, except you have these avatars that are located in there, and we chat back and forth like in a text chat room.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, let's say that I have people that I know who develop games. Would Second Life allow me to have my own developers build things and put it into the system?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. There's actually there was a guy who built, you have to know there's a scripting language, which from what I hear is reasonably easy to pick up if you're a programmer.
It's pretty Java-like.
Yeah,
it's JavaScript essentially.
So you could actually import your game in there, and you could give it away, you could sell it.
Well, I'm thinking of actually just having the developer build like one of those buildings, let's say, so that let's say some of the companies that want to work with me or get stuff showing where they have access to the building for displaying their products or something.
Mainly what you need to do is you need to buy land. So whether that's a chunk of land on an island or you can buy your own island. And the benefit, the reason you would buy your own island, and it's expensive. I want to say it's around $1,600 to buy the island.
No, it's more than that for small.
Is it?
More.
Okay.
Oh, well, actually, that might be the American price. Because I'm thinking Canadian.
And then several $100. You're not really buying, you're actually kind of renting the space from Linden.
Right.
And then they throw up a server for your island. But the benefit to having your own island versus getting a little plot of land is, if you get your own plot of land, anyone can come in and get their plot of land next to you, and you may not want those neighbors if you have a business focus. Well, there was one I went to, it's a podcasting company, and there's a strip club with the messages that come in your text chat from next door. Whereas if you get your own island, if you can afford that, you control that space. You control what happens there. If you don't want to let anyone build on your island except you, that's fine.
And that's $1,600 a year?
$1,600, I believe, one time.
Oh, really?
Maintenance is about, I think maintenance is 200 or 300 US for
Yeah,
small island.
and then another 300 US on top of it per month. So 3,600 around there to maintain.
I think just one caution as far as that goes, though, and again, it's like a lot of things. You know, people, it's sort of like people who hear about podcasting and think they should start podcasting before they've heard any podcasts.
Right.
And it's a real thing, right? Like people go, oh, I should be podcasting. Like, you ever listen to one? No. Same thing. People go, I should buy an island. It's like, dude, have you walked around in there yet? Like, and I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but it is something I would say, get in there and understand the potential and do some of these events, do something else. Because you know what? There's actually a lot of space in there. There's lots of empty places. This is one of the interesting phenomena to me. There's lots of empty places where there's nothing happening. If you want to hold an event in Second Life, when we did some of these events, it was an embarrassment of riches. People were coming to us and saying, yeah, please have it in my sim because it's empty all the freaking time. So I would start with that, personally.
Right. Get in there and learn the scripting language. Try and build something simple. Get a small place and see. Just test it out under the radar. And then if you want to go, blow it up and get an island, that's great. Did you have a question? Okay. So this was another example. This was CaseCamp. And this, have any of you heard of CaseCamp up here in Canada or gone to one? It's basically, it's basically one of the, it's an unconference, right? It typically is a weekday evening. There's a wiki. It's organized through a wiki. You say that anyone can attend, and there are going to be 4 to 6 case studies about marketing. Someone comes up, they have 15 minutes to do their marketing case study, 5 minutes for questions, and then you move on. These were the first one was held in Toronto. There've been about 4 here, I think. There've been one was in Montreal, a couple were in Ottawa, one was in Vancouver. So what I did is actually after Crayon had their launch, which we just saw, I said, why don't we take this concept, bring it into Second Life? So again, this allows, I'm not up in Canada where most of the case camps are happening, but why can't I be involved using Crayon and using Second Life as the venue to allow us to hold this kind of event? So we found 4 people that did marketing case studies in Second Life. So there was streaming audio. We had a way to do streaming audio. So these are the presenters. This was the podium here, and each presenter could have up to 4 slides, because that's one of the rules of CaseCamp. You get 4 slides, and so these were put up behind the speaker, and there they are. So they spoke. There were about 50 people in the audience, and they could ask text-based questions following, and a couple of technical difficulties, but more or less, as Jay would say, it went very well.
I thought it went very well. I attended, I took these pictures, and actually it was interesting because I think 3 out of the 4 presenters were Canadian, right?
Yes.
So that was, and it's kind of mirrors in reverse the podcast.
Yeah.
That thing, but I'll talk about that in a second.
We have, we're running close to.
Yeah, I'll blow through mine really fast. I mean, the other thing I wanted to show, my band Untitled Chapter, you might have heard. We do shows, and there's actually a very active and thriving music community. The streaming audio allows you to stream your performance into there, and you have the avatars performing. Now, it's kind of hard to obviously play and move the thing, so it's pretty static. Like basically, you get a little animation going, rocking back and forth, and you're broadcasting audio in. That's going to change, and that's going to obviously grow. But one of the things that's fascinating to me is, it's definitely not just about my band. There's like 3 or 4 or 5 shows in Second Life every night. There's solo performers doing stuff from their basement. And one of the great things that I think is fantastic about this, when I got in there, it was kind of just to look around and see what there was. And I started looking at the live music communities that were there. There's people who are, and you talk about people being addicted, but I think to me this is sort of being addicted for the right reasons. I was chatting with this woman who was like a folk singer, in her town in Atlanta, and was doing things, and got married and had kids and did all this stuff, and now she's in her 40s, and she's like, I haven't performed on stage in years. I perform in Second Life 2 or 3 times a week, and this is my creative outlet. And not only that, she gets tipped in Linden's, so she'll make 15, 20 bucks a night from her basement, playing her songs that she's sitting in her basement playing anyway. Fantastic, right? So that kind of stuff to me is very powerful. Plus, she's building a fan base. You can sell stuff online. You can connect to iTunes downloads. You can sell things directly within Second Life. You can sell, you can sell like little model guitars and things like that, all kinds of things. But the direct link to downloads is really interesting to me. We've made iTunes sales directly through Second Life shows. And yeah.
Can you actually stream live, or do you have to just read?
It's a live stream. So for instance, and in fact, come to think of it, tonight when we play at Say What, now we're not going to have the avatars logged in, but the audio stream is going to go into, hopefully, it's going to go into a sim in Second Life, so some people can listen to it online there. We could log in and have the performing going on as well. We're not going to do that tonight just because of I have a lot to do this weekend. So, but yeah, it's a live stream, and it'll be the live performance, and people in Second Life will be logged in. We mentioned CC Chapman earlier, who runs Crown. He also runs a music venue in Second Life. The last time we played at Say What, we logged in live. Were you there? Okay. But I know some folks who logged in from all over the world watched our virtual performance while we really performed at Say What, which was just fantastic. And I wanted to just quickly mention one more thing. Is the other thing we did, and I wanted to end with this, is we did PodCamp in Second Life. That's kind of how this all got started, because we were chatting about doing PodCamp in Second Life. Basically like what you see here, not as many people attended. I think we had about 25 or 30 people at any given time. I think we had about 55 registrants. But we had 5 hours, 2 days, so 10 hours altogether of presentations, just like these. And it was the exact same thing. We did a wiki, we did sign-ups through the wiki, we did, people said, I want to do this, I want to present that. They logged in through Skype or through direct link to an audio stream. They stood up on the stage and presented. That's Lynette. I co-organized with her. She was in New Jersey. I was in Toronto. We organized a PodCamp together. We still never met face to face. And and there was a woman from Denmark presenting. There was a couple people on the West Coast. It's great to get a PodCamp in Toronto. I would never say, let's do this instead of that. But this allowed us to do something that we couldn't necessarily do like this, or certainly couldn't do every week. I can't talk to people on the West Coast or in Denmark every week. So, yeah.
I'm not a musical performer, but what do you think the potential is for marketing or just getting the word out about your podcast in Second Life? Like, I know I've seen your Uncle Seth t-shirts on people in Second Life.
Yeah.
So that's that you've made these.
There's your viral marketing right there, right?
Yeah, like what do you think the potential is for just getting the word out?
One of the neat things, now it's an interesting thing because there's sort of a double-edged sword to this. It was something that CC Chapman talked about. There are communities, the podcast community is actually reinforced within Second Life. There are podcaster meetups every Tuesday night on Podcast Island in Second Life. Yeah, and I don't know if anyone here has ever been to one of those, but it's podcasters from all over the place. And Ed Roberts, who does Looking Out a Window, Lynette's always there, the Diva from the Diva show is there all the time. It's great fun. Now, the one thing is, it can get a little bit there's sort of different words for this, but you hear words like echo chamber and incestuous and things like that. It can be like everybody talking to themselves about how great they are. And I would say, and this is something easy to talk about, it's like, it's cool to hang out with podcasters, but you should go hang out with other people too. So I mean, I've tried to draw sort of the live music community and the podcast community together a little bit. I've not been hugely successful with that, to my view, although it's starting to come together. But go out and it's like real life when you're trying to bring your communities together, to me anyway. CaseCamp was a great example of that. There was folks in CaseCamp, like I'd never met Michael Seaton in real life. He's from Toronto. He's a Scotiabank guy from Toronto. And then I talked to him in Second Life after his CaseCamp thing, and now we've met face to face in real life. So, and that can go for any kinds of relationships. So yeah, absolutely, your podcast community, promote it through a related community. If your podcast is about, knitting, I don't know if there's a knitting community in Second Life, but there might be. There certainly are. There are.
If you're in Second Life, you look. There's a groups tab, I think it is, and that's where there are different different community groups around a particular topic. So I believe there are several podcasting groups, or if there's an event, we formed a particular group. Yeah, I know you've had your hand up.
I just wanted to mention for the people who like Dead Tree editions, in December they put out Second Life, the official guide.
Yeah.
It's like $42 at the store, and it's like $26 online Canadian. If you feel the need to have paper of the book.
Which can help.
But just want to wrap it up, and then we can take more questions if you want. If you haven't used Second Life, give it a try. Right? Have an open mind. Go in there. You go to secondlife.com. You do have to download some software on your.
Give yourself at least an hour.
Yeah, it takes a while, but we can give you our information or contact information. We're there to help. Find people that have been in there before that can kind of take you around to places. That's the best way to get to know different areas of Second Life, is by having someone take you around and kind of guide you along to get you started.
It's like I sort of say initially it's kind of like a super chat client. It's like downloading Google Talk for the first time. You've got nothing in there and you sort of don't know what's going on. You got to find a couple of your friends, probably real life friends or people like us, add them as friends, and then you start talking to them and it'll be like, oh hey, teleport over to where I'm hanging out, and you meet somebody else, and then you add them as a friend. And it's a lot like I am in that way. The difference being there's a presence, there's a sort of virtual, I want to say physical presence, but a virtual physical presence, where you can see people in a room and go, hey, you're talking to somebody and they're talking about something that's of interest to you, or hey, they're from Toronto, or they're from Ottawa, and I got friends there, or hey, they're talking about a topic area that I'm interested in. You add them as a friend, they're on your list, just like an I am, and then you see when they're online.
So that'll be it. If you want to stay and ask more questions, that's all, but I know we're out of time, so thank you for coming.
So
yeah, enjoy lunch. Thanks for your time, guys.
Thanks so much. Any more questions? Okay, you can talk to us privately at lunch. You're more than welcome. Thank you, guys. So yeah, lunch break, lunch sandwiches are just out here. So yeah, Subway, eat fresh, eat now, whatever, and enjoy.